guys, welcome back to Telltale. I'm Emily.
I'm Greg.
And welcome to our new digs. Isn't it lovely? Look at this.
It's been months in the making.
Greg has worked very hard to give us a new space included with comfy couch and everything. All the luxuries and comforts.
Warm, bright colors.
Yes, of my living room without the distractions of cats, husbands, and other things that go bump
Miss
in my
the
house.
cats a little bit.
I do. I might have to bring Henry every once in a while just to feel like we're more at home. But yeah, so Greg has worked really hard on this, and just kudos to you. Thank you so much for giving us a nice little headquarters that we can do something in a quiet atmosphere. So yeah, anything else you want to say about the space, or any
just that it's going to be pretty much everything. It's got my computer down here. It's set up for us to do the videos. We'll be doing photography of books down here. I've got my art corner set up with an easel. I got to get my drafting table up here yet. Bookshelves. I've got one back here, another one up there.
The other wall.
Gotta get a lot more bookshelves.
We're gonna need more bookshelves.
Because I got a lot more books.
Definitely gonna need more bookshelves.
But this is gonna be where I pretty much live.
Yeah, this is the Telltale headquarters now, so this is where all of our stuff is gonna be taking place. So if you missed the big red couch, sorry, it's being replaced by this guy.
I've got a red couch. I tried to get Gail to let me bring it, but she wanted this set.
I think it looks nice. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it goes well with the whole vibe we've got going down here.
It's comfortable and it's big.
Yeah.
I like that it's big.
Yeah.
The red one I've got is just a love seat, so it's a little tight.
Okay. Well, I love it. I think this looks fantastic, so thank you again for putting that together for us. And you'll see more of us in this space from now on.
Oh, yeah.
So welcome to the new Telltale HQ. And we'll get some
me
art
leaning
and stuff
back nicer.
I know, just... This is a really great, lounge couch. I'm gonna fall asleep doing videos in this, but...
Oh, no.
Alrighty. Well, with that, let's get into it. We're gonna be reviewing The Devil in the White City, and, I'm first gonna... Greg has had a hard time getting through this one.
I'm not big on nonfiction. It's hard for me to read nonfiction. I prefer regular fiction. And so I got to push myself, even a really good nonfiction book, I got to push myself through it. And all the things I've had going on the last month and a half,
especially
I wasn't
this
too
space.
Successful.
Yeah, this space took a lot of time for you.
This and work and just a lot of things going on.
The snow that
life.
Suddenly piled on us and all melted today because it was like 60 degrees.
Yeah, for a while there, that's all I did is come home, shovel, come home, shovel, come home, shovel.
Yeah.
I didn't get anything done.
So, yeah, he invested a lot of time in building this space, so he didn't get to read through this whole thing. He got some of it, so he has some opinions on it.
Page 123.
Okay, yeah, so you got a fair chunk of it out of there. So I'm going to go through just the synopsis real quick. I did not do any research on Erik Larson, just because I've also been busy with other stuff going on. So if you want information about him, Google him, because I don't know.
We can tell you the book was a runner-up for what, the Booker Prize?
Yeah, it was the Booker Prize. He's got In the Garden of Beasts, and also available one called Thunderstruck and another called Isaac's Storm. So they are other books that are available by him, and there's no bio of this guy in here either, which is unusual.
Yeah, even fiction books, you usually get a paragraph about the author.
Yeah, seriously. So it's that was a little interesting for this, but I enjoyed this book a lot. I definitely thought it was interesting. So what it does is it flip-flops between the story of America's first serial killer, H.H. Holmes, and the building of the White City, which is the World's Fair in Chicago during the Great
Columbian
Depression.
Exposition of 1893, I believe it was. Yep,
1893. And it was definitely during a very chaotic time. Stock market crashes, banks going out. It was its own little depression. Big fights in Chicago about union work and things like that. Oh, yeah. Huge surge of population, and of course, unaccompanied young women, which was a big focus for this book because H.H. Holmes specifically targeted women. Yeah. By the end, he had 3 women he was kind of juggling. He was also a bigamist. and a womanizer. Like, he had multiple wives under different aliases and names. He had multiple businesses under different aliases and names.
Well, he was a complete narcissist.
Yeah,
as narcissistic as you can possibly get. He didn't give a damn about anybody but himself.
He was
just did whatever he wanted.
Yeah, he was like the first officially diagnosed psychopath, really, when you think about it, because he had no fucks to give. He's just done. Like,
but he used everybody. He would hire workers and then just find reasons to fire them so that they wouldn't find his secrets in this hotel he was building.
Didn't have to pay them.
Yeah, and he didn't pay anybody. He talked his way out of absolutely everything. Had this scam where people would come and meet him, and he was the mastermind, and he would claim that the person who they needed to see for payment was this other guy who didn't even exist.
It was technically him.
Yeah. But this other person didn't exist, but these people didn't know it. So he kept telling them he had to try and catch this other guy, and he was never there, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he just was really, even during his trial, he allegedly killed multiple women, but he was only tried for a case of some children that he disposed of.
Really?
I think so. There were 3 children of his one of his business partners. He ended up killing him, and then his 3 children. So I think it was 4 people or something that he ended up getting charged with, but he allegedly about 11 women they think he also could be linked to having killed, but I don't think he was ever charged for those. So
weird.
But this guy was he was the master of manipulation. Even during his trial, he wrote a memoir, which we don't know how much of it was real and fake. Probably all of it was fake. Just names and places were probably right, but everything else was his narcissism just trying to... Basically, he wrote this thing to try and get sympathy, pushed it out to a publisher. The publisher published it, and it made his trial really, really difficult for the nation. So, this guy was so good at manipulating stuff. He even tried to manipulate public opinion of himself during his trials. And it's just... And he was ridiculously handsome, ridiculously charming. So it was super easy for him to do this. Everybody just... he became everybody's instant friend. And of course, as a womanizer, he just knew how to manipulate women and how to get them attracted to him. Then he'd just throw them in his oven. He had this giant incinerator and gas chamber put in his basement. He also had one in a closet in his office. He had all these weird nooks and crannies. But really what he would do... I think it's so funny that it's International Women's Day. We're talking about this man who just killed women. As filming this is International Women's Day. It's not being posted then, but... Yeah, I just think that's... I just thought of that just now. Anyway, he basically took all these women and any subsequent children that he also had to dispose of. He dissected them however he liked, kind of being inspired by Jack the Ripper. And then he had a business partner who he would give the bodies to, who articulated the skeletons and sold them to doctors' offices and universities.
Yeah.
And back then... Universities were also grave robbing to get their hands on skeletons and cadavers.
Medical science needed that information. They needed to get a hold of real bodies to take them apart and explore and discover things, because they didn't know anything at that time. And they didn't have any other way of finding out. So, and there were laws that were passed against them just getting people who were recently dead, and so then they turned to grave robbers to actually steal bodies out of graves so that they could keep moving forward with science. It's a very unfortunate time, but they did what they felt they had to do in order to learn and become better at their profession.
Yeah, and they just didn't have an organized way of people donating their bodies to science.
Right.
So it ended up just kind of being Jane Doe's, John Doe's, and whoever, was put in a shallow grave.
Well, it went so far where some of the grave robbers were actually murdering people.
Yeah, to get these...
supply bodies because they could get a lot of money for it.
And in fact, actually, that was one of the things that H.H. Holmes had done with some accomplices, is they procured bodies to fake some deaths for some insurance fraud. And that was his main way of getting away with stuff, insurance fraud. He would get insurance on these women he, was promising to marry, and then they'd go missing or be presumed dead, or, whatever lie he could come up with.
Yeah.
And collect insurance on them. And he
Yeah.
did it with several business partners and all those kids that he ended up murdering and getting caught finally for. Like, that was his main means of funding himself.
Right.
Was through insurance fraud. And that's actually first why he was being investigated.
Mm-hmm.
Until one of his business partner never came home. And then they started investigating him for the missing business partner. And then he's kidnapped those 3 children from said business partner's widow. And that's when it started snowballing for him, and he was just on the thrill of the chase now, and basically, like, moving these kids around within the same city their mom was.
Yeah.
Like, he was getting her to travel, too, and, like, kind of wooing her at the same time, and, like, he was, like, getting off on the fact that he could, like, have these people so close but so far and missing each other. It was, like, the ultimate torment in his mind. He was just a really sick person.
Mm-hmm.
So while that's all going on, we've got the drama of the White City being built, the World's Fair. All these architects are fighting, arguing, budgeting, re-budgeting, politicking everywhere, trying to get the World's Fair built on time.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually didn't quite make it. They actually ended up being late on completing the whole thing.
Oh.
And I believe there are only 2 buildings in Chicago that are from the World's Fair that are still standing. One of them's the Field Museum, and I forgot what the other one was.
I think the Art Institute.
Is it the Art Institute?
I think so.
I thought it was one of the other museums, but I couldn't remember if it was like the Aquarium or the Art Institute, or if it was the Museum of Science and Industry. I couldn't remember what those buildings were, which buildings they were.
Yeah.
But for sure, the Field Museum is one of the only buildings still standing in Chicago that's from the World's Fair. The rest of them were all temporary buildings.
Mm-hmm.
So they just ripped them down when they were done.
Yeah, and they did that just for time. They originally wanted to use stone and steel, but I just got to the part where they had a meeting where they decided they just couldn't do it, so they had to come up with a way to fake it.
Yeah, they had to fake it till they made it because they were running so far behind.
Uh-huh.
And, like, getting decisions made, getting, like, blueprints from all the architects across the United States. They had some international people who had stuff they were building that they had to get approval for. Just getting a budget approved. Like, I feel like the more people you get involved in decision-making, the less decisions get made.
Oh, yeah.
So that was
That's
kind
always
of
true.
the whole drama of this whole thing, especially when they were trying to be better than the fair in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to be better than what they thought New York could buy. They were trying to be this upper echelon sort of thing. They're basically trying to elevate Chicago to New York level.
Yeah.
Especially in arts and culture.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the time, it was known for coal mining and pig slaughtering.
Yeah.
And that was it. And their disgusting lake and river because sanitation was awful.
Yes, it was.
There is a lot of drama, a lot of detail. I kind of wish they had focused more on H.H. Holmes than they did on the World's Fair, personally.
Okay.
But I also really liked, as a designer and creative, seeing that all the crap that can go on when you're trying to, like, work collaboratively and in group settings with, like, multiple clients and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It made me feel better because that is a common problem as a freelance graphic designer. The more people involved, the harder it is to accomplish the goal and make sure that everybody's pleased.
Yep.
So it kind of, like, made me feel vindicated for the frustrations, and it's like, oh, it's always been like this. That's great. Okay, it's not just me. Yay.
People haven't really changed that much.
No, they haven't. But I think the biggest thing that this book talks about is this huge gap between the upper class and lower classes.
Okay.
And how the White City was kind of that. It needed the lower classes and union workers to be built, but it was really for the rich.
Yeah.
And how very obvious that was during this time, where you did have this huge juxtaposition of Chicago being either for the really wealthy or the stupidly poor.
Yeah.
Like, and just basically how humans of lower socioeconomic statuses were kind of just used like cattle.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, too, is basically, like, one of the big things they talk about a lot in this book is if you were poor and went missing, the police didn't care.
Right.
That was literally why H.H. Holmes was able to get away with so much, is because all these women who went missing were nobodies. If they were wealthy, it would have been a different story.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's kind of why a private investigator got involved, because he happened to have one of his wealthy wives go missing. That was his downfall, was going too high, and Icarus went and got too close to the sun
away.
there.
Yeah.
Got too close to the sun there. But it's interesting because it really focuses a lot on this juxtaposition of the white city in this, what was at the time a really trashy Chicago, with a lot of crime, a lot of people going missing, a lot of poverty. And then, of course, once the World's Fair started, everybody came thinking, oh, there's going to be so much work, but there was already an overpopulation problem.
Yeah.
So everybody's getting and disease. Everybody and their brother had typhoid, or like all kinds of other stuff that was going through, and terrible flus that were killing off large population. Like, this book really shows you how corrupt Chicago was, and how the decline of the economy at the time didn't make it better.
Yeah.
But how basically the white city was everyone faking it till they made it. Just like H.H. Holmes. Like, really all it shows is that these people who built the white city and H.H. Holmes are all just faking it till they make it.
Yeah.
And trying to, like, sleaze each other out of stuff. And, like, try to make money and try to, you know, try to be whatever they weren't.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that was the main moral of The Devil in the White City. I thought it was well written, though. Like, I really enjoyed the narrative. I thought it was pretty well done. I didn't feel like I was reading a textbook. It didn't feel super dry to me.
Yeah, it didn't. It was a good... What I've read so far is a good story. Very well written. Engaging for nonfiction. If anything, though, I think the author dug too deep.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, frivolous detail.
Yeah, there's one part that I just read through not too far back was when the architects first got together in Chicago and they had this a dinner meeting. And the author put in the whole menu. And I'm looking at that going, why do I care? You know, I want to learn about H.H. Holmes. I want to learn about building the Chicago World's Fair. I don't care what potatoes they had.
Yeah. And half of those I couldn't even pronounce because it's in French. So I'm like, okay, we get it. The hoity-toities had a hoity-toity dinner. We get that they're being frivolous, spending on themselves and not on the white city. Get it. Like, you didn't need to reiterate the menu for me to get that.
He could have just said they went to one of the best hotels in Chicago and had dinner, and that would have been enough.
Yeah, like a 5-star dinner.
For that.
Could have summarized that whole menu in one sentence.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit... If you're a detail person, you would like this book.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're not a detail person and you just want the story, there are some parts that it's frustrating and you're wondering why they even mentioned it at all. So, I mean, it does kind of... I felt like there was a good balance, though, for the most part, personally. Okay. Like, I felt like the frivolity was just to set the scene, and usually, not always, but usually it led into something relevant.
Okay.
And why it kind of sets the scene better for you. But there are some parts where it's just like...
Let's move on.
Did I really need to know this? I did like the saga. I don't know if you got to it. The saga of the building of the Ferris wheel.
No, I didn't get that far.
that was really fun for me because that Ferris wheel was such a pain in the ass to get done. It was the first Ferris wheel ever. Never tested. They just came up with a blueprint with physics and were building this thing. And like each car I think could hold like 20 people.
Oh wow.
Or something. This thing was enormous. It's like the London Eye but bigger platforms.
Wow.
Like this thing was huge. So I thought that was kind of fun because I think we think of Ferris wheels as just like this little kid fun thing at carnivals and stuff. And this is what started Ferris wheels at the fair. It was literally a Ferris wheel. The first one ever at the World's Fair. So I kind of like that little detail bit about it. And I really like the poor landscaper for the World's Fair. He just had to, he was like, I had so much empathy for his situation because he couldn't landscape anything. until buildings were done. But then the building next to it would like trample his entire work. And he'd have to redo stuff, and he was trying to like get things planted in the right seasons, but still give the right mood and try and like feature the lake and all this stuff that everybody wanted, and he just got handed the shaft of that.
Oh boy.
Like, he was so shafted. It ended up working out in the end. Like, he got everything figured out and stuff, but every time he did something, it was undone by union workers or whoever was building the next building, and I just felt so bad for him, because it was like, and yet again, everything was trampled, and yet again, a plan had to be changed because it brought up a new problem, and just seeing the process of revision that they had to do for everything in the moment even was super, like, it's just like, as a designer, I was like, oh, my heart goes out to you, man. I feel you right here, my soul. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was interesting because, like, I grew up, I had family in Chicago most of my life. So it just was kind of cool to say, hey, I know where that is now.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time down there. I'm familiar with some, I mean, it's changed a lot since 1893.
Yes, but it's kind of cool to see what hasn't. And to know that there are still some buildings that are still there.
Yeah.
And, like, to understand how they built a city out of a swamp was kind of cool. Like, there was some really interesting engineering that went behind that that's described in here that you can't appreciate until you, like, read the full story and understand what they were up against.
Right.
Because Chicago is a swamp. It's like building anything in Florida, really. Like, all of Florida is a swamp, so, like, kudos to them for figuring that out.
Well, there's a lot of that along, you know, we live along the shore of Lake Michigan. Kenosha, Racine, Milwaukee, they've all built up their lake fronts quite a bit. Yeah.
So, I thought this was pretty good. I gave it 4 stars.
Okay.
Because I thought this was an interesting read. But I don't know that I'd put it as, like, a top tale. I think it was just a really good, entertaining historical piece.
Yeah, I think so, too.
Yeah.
I think our video is almost out of time.
Oh, no!
It's flashing on me.
Yeah. That's really all I had for this one, because...
Yeah, I don't have anything further. I didn't get that far.
Yeah. We'll finish it, because it is interesting.
I'll keep going. I'll finish it little by little.
Yeah. So if you like to know what's going on in Chicago during the World's Fair, this gives you a lot of detail. It also gives you a lot of detail on H.H. Holmes and that crazy bastard who killed so many women. I'm just mad. Like, why women and children? What kind of sick pervert, anyway? So yeah. If you like it, let us know. Like and subscribe, comment, give us your feedback on this one. I enjoyed it, so let me know why you did or didn't. And we will see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.